Sometimes people would criticize me because they felt that I didn't do enough for race or racism. I try to tell stories that allow people to see themselves in the lives of other people.
Do you still ever experience at this elevation racism?
I've experienced it. I think the higher up you go in the chain of capitalism, people don't expect you to be sitting at certain board table.
You sense that?
You sense it and you know it.
Oprah Winfrey is a name that needs no introduction. She is a media mogul, philanthropist, actress, and one of the most influential people in the world. But despite her immense success, Oprah Winfrey has had to endure her fair share of racism and discrimination. This current wave of racism and discrimination against black people didn't just start today. It can be traced back to the end of slavery centuries ago. In this video, we will explore the dark side of racism that is being downplayed by the media and how it affects black people today. After the American Civil War, the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution was ratified, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude. After the abolition of slavery, black people were supposed to be free. They were supposed to be able to live their lives as equals, but that's not what happened. Instead, they were met with racism, discrimination, and hatred. In the years following emancipation, black people were subjected to a new form of oppression, the Jim Crow laws. The Jim Crow laws were state and local laws that enforced racial segregation and discrimination against black people in the southern United States, ensuring that black people do not use the same facilities as white people. These Jim Crow laws were finally overturned, but their effects continue to be felt by black people today. The legacy of racism and discrimination has left deep scars in the African American community, and many of the issues that black people face today can be traced back to the Jim Crow era. Even with the aftermath of these laws, black people have made strides in achieving success. The likes of Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, Rosa Parks, Barack Obama, and Oprah Winfrey have shown that black people can achieve great success even when heavily discriminated. However, despite being a billionaire, Oprah Winfrey continues to face racism and discrimination just like any other black person. Before we listen to Oprah Winfrey share her story, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel to keep informed of our eye-opening black narrative. Let's take a look at what she has to say.
I had a really interesting incident. I didn't say anything about it because several years ago I was in France and I had an incident at a store there, and I, complained about which I knew was clearly racism, and because it only happens so often where I am directly confronted with it, where it's so obviously in your face. Andre Walker over there, is my hairdresser and has done my hair for years, he and I, years ago, this was in the late 90s or something, wasn't it, Andre? We had gone to see Serafina, and we're like, Serafina, and we come out of the play, and we're going down the street, and I tried to get into, I saw a sweater in the window, this was on Madison Avenue, and they wouldn't open the door, and they wouldn't open the door. And I am not the person who pulls the race card. So I am just so like, wow, gee, I wonder God, do they see us out here? So we went across the street. This is before cell phones were everywhere. Remember, Andre? And we called to say, are you open? Yes, we're open. Okay, coming over. Just cross the street. Didn't let us in. We had seen on the way across the street these two white women go in the store. And suddenly it dawns on the both of us. Andre and I were saying like, oh my God, I think we're having a racist moment. I think we're having a racist moment. And it was. I later called back to the store after flying back. This was on Madison. After flying back to Chicago and asking the person, well, I was by your store today and I wasn't let in, and they said that they had been robbed by two black people the week before and they were afraid to open the door. And I mean, the fact that they actually admitted that was so striking. And I said I was coming in to buy this sweater, and they said, well, we'd like to give you this sweater for free. And I go, keep the sweater, whatever. Just recently, I was in Zurich, and I was at a store. Now, this was last week. I was in Zurich, and I had gone there for Tina Turner's wedding. And I'd gone out to go shopping, and I'm in a store, name brand store, and I say to the woman, I'm by myself, absolutely nobody else with me, And I say to the woman, I would like to see that bag on the shelf. And she says, no, that one's too expensive. I'll show you this one. She did. And she proceeded to tell me about the bag and how the bag was created for Jennifer Aniston, and it was and that you should want this one. And I said, no, but I really want to see the black one there, the black one, which I think it was, you know, lizard or alligator or something, and I'm sure it was expensive. And she said, no. You don't want
How does that make you feel?
to see that. Well, I wanted to laugh at it. I wanted to create a Pretty Woman moment and go and come back and buy everything and say, big mistake. But then I thought she'd get a commission, so let's not do that.
These incidents are not just limited to Oprah Winfrey, but are faced by black people all over the world on a daily basis. From being stopped by the police for no reason to being followed around in stores, black people are constantly subjected to microaggressions and overt acts of racism that can be deeply traumatizing. Black people are often targeted by law enforcement simply because of the color of their skin. They are more likely to be pulled over, searched, and arrested than white people, even when they have committed no crime. Being black also means you have to face racial discrimination when it comes to housing. This form of systematic racism has a long history. The National Housing Act of 1934 formalized redlining, which effectively provided housing to white families and left out people of color. Instead of getting to live in the newly established suburbs, black Americans and other people of color were segregated into urban housing projects. According to the Federal Housing Administration's reasoning, if black Americans bought suburban homes, the property values would go down. This would put the loans of white Americans at risk. There was no evidence of this, and in fact, property values actually went up when black Americans moved in because they were willing to pay more for housing than white Americans. The FHA's justification was racism pure and simple. Redlining has lasting consequences to this day. Black homebuyers are more likely to be denied a real estate agent appointment, while housing lenders are more likely to recommend subprime loans to black homebuyers, even if they qualify for prime loans. According to real estate brokerage firm Redfin, just 44% of black householders own their homes, as opposed to 73.7% of white householders. Compared to white neighborhoods, similar homes located in black majority neighborhoods are worth 23% less. Systemic racism is also extended into the educational system. School districts with the most black students get significantly less revenue than districts with fewer students of color. For districts with 5,000 students, that can mean losing $13.5 million. Less funding means fewer computers, fewer teachers, outdated textbooks, and run-down buildings. Even in schools with resources like gifted education programs, racial disparities are a problem. With black children attending schools that are underfunded and understaffed, this can limit their academic opportunities and put them at a disadvantage when it comes to college and career opportunities. This can also contribute to a cycle of poverty that is difficult to break. Even worse, black people are often the target of hate crimes and violence, including police brutality, lynchings, and mass shootings. These incidents can be traumatizing and have long-lasting effects on the mental health and well-being of black individuals and communities. One of the most horrific examples of an entire black community being targeted by white supremacists dates back to the 1920s in what is known as the Tulsa Massacre. In the early 20th century, Tulsa, Oklahoma was home to a thriving community of black residents. Known as Black Wall Street, this area of the city was a hub of black entrepreneurship and economic success. Black-owned businesses thrived, including grocery stores, restaurants, theaters, and more. There were even 2 black-owned newspapers in the city. But as you might expect in a deeply segregated society, not everyone was happy with the success of Black Wall Street. White residents, many of whom were members of the Ku Klux Klan, resented the economic power held by the black community. They were particularly incensed by the fact that black residents of Tulsa were living in a way that contradicted the racist stereotypes of the time. On May 31, 1921, a young black man named Dick Rowland was falsely accused of assaulting a white woman in an elevator. The details of what actually happened are unclear, but the accusation was enough to spark a firestorm of violence. A white mob gathered outside the courthouse where Rowland was being held, and a group of armed black men showed up to protect him. What followed was a night of terror. The white mob, which grew to thousands of people, began attacking black residents and burning down homes and businesses. The black men who had come to protect Rowland eventually retreated to Greenwood, the heart of Black Wall Street, where they tried to defend their community. but they were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Over the course of the next 24 hours, white mobs burned down over 1,000 homes and businesses in Greenwood. By the time the violence finally subsided, many of the black residents had been killed, and thousands were left homeless. It's estimated that the economic damage caused by the massacre was around $30 million in today's money. This is a prime example of how Jim Crow laws, even though they are no longer in effect, continue to promote racism against black people. The truth is, black people are just as capable of success as anyone else. However, the systemic racism that still exists in our society continues to hold back the success of many black people. From unequal access to education and job opportunities to police brutality and mass incarceration, black people face challenges that white people do not. But despite these challenges, black people have made significant contributions to society. From inventors and entrepreneurs to artists and musicians, black people have shaped the world we live in today. The reality is that systemic racism still exists today, and we must continue to work towards dismantling it. In this regard, Oprah Winfrey has been a trailblazer in advocating for equality and the end of racism. One of the most notable ways Oprah has fought against racism is through her talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show. Throughout her career, she has used her platform to bring attention to issues facing the black community, such as police brutality and racial discrimination. She has also interviewed countless individuals who have experienced racism firsthand, giving them a voice and a platform to share their stories. In addition to her talk show, Oprah has also been a vocal advocate for educational opportunities for black people. In 2007, she opened the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for girls in South Africa, which provides education and leadership opportunities to girls from disadvantaged backgrounds. Furthermore, Oprah has also supported various organizations and initiatives that aim to end racism and promote equality. She has donated millions of dollars to causes such as the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the Center for Civil and Human Rights, and the United Negro College Fund. Oprah's advocacy for equality and the end of racism is not limited to the United States. She has used her global platform to bring attention to issues facing black people around the world, particularly in Africa. To truly change racism and improve equality for black people, we need to acknowledge and confront the historical and ongoing legacies of slavery, colonization, and segregation. We need to recognize that the wealth, power, and privilege that white people enjoy today are built on the exploitation and oppression of black people throughout history. One way to start changing racism is by educating ourselves and others about the true history of black people's experiences and contributions to society. We need to challenge the whitewashing of history and elevate the voices and perspectives of black scholars, activists, and artists. Another crucial step is to actively dismantle the systems and structures that perpetuate racism. This includes advocating for policies and practices that address racial inequalities in education, housing, healthcare, and criminal justice. It also means supporting black-owned businesses and organizations and pushing for greater representation and diversity in all aspects of society. But most importantly, changing racism requires a personal commitment to self-reflection, empathy, and action. We must be willing to listen to the experiences and perspectives of black people, confront our own biases and privileges, and actively work towards creating a more just and equitable society for all. We cannot ignore the dark side of racism any longer. It's time to face it head-on and work towards a future where black people are truly free and equal. As always, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos to let more people know the truth about blacks and to hear their own part of the narratives. Thanks for watching.